and that is the challenges that your chapters, you and your chapters have to face on a day-to-day basis. By way of making this easier, I carried forward some of the input that we got last year. And so, Trio chapter challenges, they said, one, there's not enough new members. Among existing members, even fewer volunteers, that is engaged members. We will be talking about that tomorrow in the first work session. Each time we've done this, we've been able to get the volunteer coordinator for the OPO to come in and share with us how they recruit and engage volunteers. So the first session tomorrow morning at 8:30, your coffee is fresh, wide awake. Colleen Sullivan will be giving us a great presentation on that. Aging membership. In some cases, lack of meetings, especially when a leader passes on, and I don't mean to death, I mean like in nation's capital where the president moved to Kansas City, right? You get to this problem where sometimes meetings start dropping off, then you don't have enough people to get a good speaker, right? So nobody else comes out to meetings, and you don't have a speaker, now there's no meetings. And so what Claude did was hosted a party and a holiday party last year to bring it back together again. And now they're back coming together. He and, where'd Trudy go? Anyway, there we are, Trudy, I'm sorry. And so the two of them who said, hey, we're at a point where we're retired from this, they're taking it back on. Between co-presidents, for example, sharing the load and using social events to bring members back. Poorly run meetings, lacking visible, empowering goals and purpose. Communications with our membership, challenge. There's a lot of tools out there in the internet these days that don't cost anything, and you can use them very effectively. Takes a little bit of doing, but they're very powerful tools to drum up the communication. I'm going to tell you, the chapters that have newsletters, they're beautiful, and it takes somebody passionate. Mary?
Walt now does it.
Who?
Our new co-president, Walt
Does
does
it.
it himself.
There you go, Walt. And so passing it on to somebody else who will take on that passion. It's usually one person. Their frustration is nobody tells me what they're doing, right? And so you've got to go out there and drum up the stories just like your local newspaper. And so Walt has got a good team in his chapter. They put out a great newsletter. Yes?
I can tell you how Walt resolved that issue. He kept asking for pictures, because our group is involved in a lot of things in the community. So finally he threatened to put pictures of our schnauzer up. Where he thought there should be a picture, and then he got one. Apparently they didn't want to see our dog.
Well, I got to tell you, most of the chapter leaders know that in order to build the program booklet for tonight, we reached out to every chapter, let them share their story and some photos. And one of the chapters, with the last minute, I mean after the deadline and everything, I said, come on, you got to help us here. There must be a photo of something. He's okay, so he sends a photo, and we look at it and say, what the hell is this? I mean, he's in his kitchen, leaning back, looks like a hillbilly almost. There's a leg in the front part of the picture in this kitchen scene. And we go, what is he doing? I just got a note from him yesterday after he looked at the proofs. What I did, one found other photos from their area. You know, they were part of the river rafting or something. I found on the website, the site about the river rafting. We used that picture, sent it to him. He writes back, he says, Jim, I am so sorry. My attachments weren't working the way it's supposed to. I don't know how that photo got on there. Oh, thank God. I thought he was crazy. Anyway, you'll see more of that tonight. Financial support challenge. Variety of constituencies. How do you address all the constituencies? Maybe you celebrate one at a time. Youth as an example. Getting speakers for meetings, especially when you got a light attendance. How do you get a speaker for 3 people? I'll tell you how we do it in Philadelphia. We record those presentations for the National Transplant Presentation Library. So we make sure that speaker knows this is a token audience, these 5 people. And there's thousands out there that are going to see this. So you don't mind us recording it, right? We asked up front. Yes. And so we are the token audience for the virtual audience. That's how we get around our light attendance sometimes. Interesting activity events. This springtime, we said, somebody said, oh, it's our anniversary coming up. It was Sue and Bob, for example. And I said, really? And somebody else had an anniversary. Somebody else had, a transplant anniversary. I said, we need to get together and celebrate these life events. Okay. So we created a dinner down at Art Recipients Restaurant down at the Jersey Shore. It's a great place to go, about an hour out of Philly. And we went down there. What did it cost the chapter? Nothing for dinner. We said, hey, it's Dutch treat. If you come, you're paying for your own dinner. No problem. And we gave them gifts of a book, but that wasn't a mandated part of it. So I'm saying you can put on stuff like that without a big expense to your chapter, is my point. We had a great time together. We opened it up. More people than just chapter members came as a way to recruit. We had a wonderful time celebrating Trio's 25th anniversary and gave each partner pair an opportunity. We brought some books and said, here, present this and thank you to your caregiver. Let me tell you, it was one of these emotional times where as each person shared the thanks to their loved one there, we all felt it. We ended up with 35 people out for an afternoon in a great theme-type restaurant at the Jersey Shore, touching hearts. It was a great time. Okay? We had no money in the treasury. Well, we didn't have any way of doing that. Somebody says, Sue says, you want me to bring balloons? Hey, that's a good idea. Sure enough. We had balloons when you walked in the restaurant. It was really cool. Get creative is my point. Lack of leadership, backup development. One of the things that has impressed me with Steve in San Francisco, and he's started hearing this now, but I'm sorry, it's got to be repeated. Steve's been chapter president in San Francisco 7 years, was it? And he had been developing his backup, right? And I said, how'd you do that? Because this is one of the things that I feel is a failing in many chapters. Nobody wants to be the next president. The president passes away, moves away. Nobody wants the job because that person was around so long and they did such a great job, blah, blah, blah. Okay? How did you get her, there she is sitting next to him, right, to take on this role? He says, I worked on it for about a year and a half. He said, I'd take her out to lunch, talk about what was involved, explain what the responsibilities were. He knew she had the skills. She was coming up on retirement. She was passionate about the cause. And so he groomed her for that. And then there he is at Costco one day, falls over, ends up in a coma, in the hospital for, how many weeks? 4 weeks. And the chapter would have normally just gone defunct at that point. But she was ready in the wings to take over. She pitched in. He has a chapter to go back to now because he groomed and developed that backup. And so if you have questions in that area, I would point you to Steve to talk about how he did that and how well it worked, because every chapter has that problem. I have that problem in Philadelphia, getting somebody to take over my shoes. I'll never go away. I mean, I'm not looking to step down from anything. I'll always be involved doing something, but I don't need to be the president. And so I face the same challenge. I don't have the solution even in our own chapter. I'll be honest about that, okay? Nobody willing to step up to lead, share the load, talk about lack of leader turnover. Challenge when you've got a leader that's been there 20 years and very passionate. You know, you're setting yourself up for failure because they're all going to die someday. Lorraine DeBescal, great leader, long-term leader in Manhattan. Her husband dies. A year later, she passes away. There's a void. Nobody wants to step into it. The whole chapter goes defunct for almost a year, almost like a grieving process after a funeral. Coming back now with somebody who said, I don't want to do it. But she's doing it, and she's doing a great job. Relationship with other organizations can offer challenge. Trio sometimes seen as competition. Well, you got to go market yourself a little bit, find ways to be synergistic with the common cause that we share, show ways that you can benefit them. When we got our chapter back on, after a number of years of being defunct really, Elizabeth, who had been the past president, said, but Jim, there's so many organizations here, what can we do? I said, I don't know. Let me take a matrix of all the organizations and the type of services that the community needs, and we marked off what they each provided. And then we looked for the gaps and said, is Trio in that gap? Yes. Oh, there's an overlap here. For example, the OPO offers speaker training. All right, we don't want to go in that business. We'll send our speakers there for training. And they become part of the volunteers with the dispatching service that the OPO has. And Trio now has speakers going out all over the place through that kind of relationship. So we don't need to compete. We can work with. And that's the same challenge you have when you're dealing with a social worker at a hospital. You don't want to be seen as a threat to their support group, for example. You want to find ways to help them. Get creative. An effective use of the Trio presentation library. You have now in your hands, and most recently we made sure you had a new carrying case for this. You've got 36 DVD programs on subjects about transplantation available to use for meetings, available for individual members to use, and 3 more are in the mail within the next week or 2. So that's getting you up to about 42. By the end of this year, you'll have 48 of them. Each one's about an hour. Individuals can take that home, watch it on their TV. Your speaker doesn't show up, you're in a bind. Hey, what we did is said, who wants to hear what here? Oh, let's hear that one. Okay, put it up there, we got a presentation, we have a discussion about it, get everybody involved with it. We had a presenter there when we couldn't get a presenter. So if you're not familiar with that library, ask your chapter president to see it. If they can't find it, we need to know about it, because recently we just refreshed it and we said, you know, if you can't find them, we will send you all 36 programs again. At this point, every chapter should have the complete library of 36 DVD programs with flyers explaining it. And if you want to see what those titles are, as Jim always says, go out to our website, click on Presentation Library, all the titles are there, and watch them. They're fascinating. We're recording 2 more in the next couple weeks. And so the survey we put out, and I didn't make copies of this, so we're not going to do it, was to look at those issues and from the perspective of your chapter, rank which was the most important, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he said that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave that up. I'm going to shut up and say, what are the challenges you are facing in your chapters? What do you see the chapter challenge being? Raise it, and let's see if we have any different ones or any ideas of how to address these.
I can think of one.
Go ahead.
As the new president of the San Francisco chapter, we revised the bylaws, and I'm a little unclear on who the board is actually, besides, you know, we've got president, VP, secretary, and treasurer. And we have a pretty good active chapter. I mean, there's enough people to do these jobs. But then as far as the board goes, I'd just like to hear who else might be on the board. There are several critical roles that we have for committee chairs, like membership, you know, the person who keeps the database and keeps that current and sends dues to you guys and that kind of thing. Well, the treasurer does that. Anybody have any suggestions?
I'm sorry that Ron just stepped out of the room, because he just pulled together, as their chapter took a dip. He was president before, leadership took over, they got sick, come down with cancer, et cetera, and so he came back in and picked it up, and so he's reformed his board. So at dinner tonight, make sure you contact him and ask him that same question. But now, it's a general question. Anybody else that's got a board? We don't have a board, for example, in Philadelphia. Anybody got a board? Yes.
We do in Cleveland.
Okay.
And I would say the majority, it's a combination of recipients, donor families, and transplant professionals that are on the board, in addition, are trustees, in addition to being our officers. And they genuinely have an interest in one way, shape, or form in transplant.
So as far as decision-making and when you have to make a decision about spending money, I mean, I don't want to just do it as the president, and of course, Steve and I can talk about this in our chapter, but would it be just the officers who are elected, or would you run it by the board?
We have a monthly board meeting. We propose, you know, we discuss, there's a discussion about a proposed topic. We have a motion, a second, you know, we attempt to follow as best we can the Robert's Rules of Order in running your organization, and we have a vote, but it is also with the trustees. They're an important part. It can't just be our board. We need their input.
Okay. Yeah, I think JT is on our board according to the bylaws. I've never met JT.
I'm sorry, JT Rhodes?
Yeah.
Down in Jacksonville?
Is he here?
No.
No? Okay.
How is he associated with your board in San Francisco?
I don't know. I looked at the bylaws and it sounds like,
then-
what's his position in the?
He's chairman of the chapter council, chapter president's council, right now.
He's the most recent past president.
Right, so he plays that role. But I wouldn't expect that you would use him on your board,
Okay.
okay? Sometimes in passing on the copies, the template of the bylaws, things reside in there from the last person that came up with a good set we're passing around. And so it might be there from Jacksonville or something, you know. But that wouldn't make sense. Just
We want to be geographically diverse.
I would expect your board to be people that are engaged locally. If you can get somebody distant to be part of your board, go right ahead. And if JT wanted to do that, go right ahead. I think he would be very surprised.
My guess is that it might say that the current president of the trio, and just that whatever you're looking at was referenced back when JT was president.
Something like
And
that.
that's why you're thinking JT.
Anybody else have any board experience that you'd like to share, chapter board experience? Go ahead, yes, sir.
Paul Armbruster with the Pittsburgh chapter.
Hiya, Paul. I didn't recognize you. I know him well.
I'm the secretary of the Pittsburgh chapter. We have 4 officers, president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary, and 10 board members. And we have a section in bylaws that pertains just to the board, that board members are, their term of office would be 2 years. And in the way we appoint board members, usually it's a board member who recommends someone else in our membership that might be a good person to bring forward to someone who's active, attends meetings, and you kind of know people who would stand up and do something.
And they're appointed by the officers.
Well, board members are asked by the president to become a board. Officers are elected.
That's my understanding, yeah, okay.
And not too long ago, we changed the way we voted our officers. It's every 2 years at the annual meeting, and which is, for our annual meeting is when the elections are held in November. And it's the president and secretary for the even years, and the vice president and treasurer in the odd years. I believe in the past, all 4 were voted the same way. The reason we changed it was, one, for some reason, like all 4 couldn't come back. So you'd have 4 new people with no experience, actually, hands-on. So we split it up 2 and 2, so that at least 2 officers with 2 years with some experience will be retained every year.
We decided to get rid of any term limits on our officers because so many people stay for so long, and it just seemed arbitrary to say, oh, you can only be elected for 2 years. But
we do have a term to it, like it's 2 years with 3 terms max. So
okay, I think, yeah.
6
So
years.
it's like a 6-year window.
Oh, okay. But you can re-elect people, so at least you have an election, so other people have a shot at being
That's right.
officers.
But it's like everything else. Go out and try to find people that even want to be on your board. They don't want to be on your board, so
Yeah.
that's why you end up with the same people.
But you have to ask.
Again, it's one of the important things of trying to get fresh people in so that you can have that rotation. But a common experience with many chapters is they don't have the candidates. So the same person gets stuck with the job for 10 years. And that becomes a liability for the organization. I mean, let's face it, even if you go to a doctor, what's he do? Whatever works for his patients over all these years. If you want a new treatment, you better see a different doctor who's trying something different. You know? And so the same thing in a chapter. You're doing the same things every year. You're going to keep doing them, and guess what? They get stale after a while. Well, what else can we do? That's what you need. Somebody else who doesn't know better and says, well, why don't we have whatever? We can't afford that. Well, why don't we let people pay on their own? Another organization I have had an annual picnic for heart transplant recipients. And we had a large organization of heart transplant recipients in the Philadelphia area. And every year, the number of people decreased. And so the caterer who had a minimum, who would charge for 75 people, and the numbers got down to 60 and then 50. Well, how much are we going to charge to come? And they finally said, you know, we can't afford it. We'll just abandon the picnic. I'm sitting there and saying, I've been going to these picnics. I really enjoy them. And I said, I'll take over the picnic committee. Well, what are you going to do? We don't have the money. I said, we're not going to charge. It's going to be free. You can't do that. I said, sure I can. I don't even have to register. Anybody like to come to our picnic? Come. Bring your own food. Bring something to share. There's no charge. If 10 people show up, we have a great time with 10 people. We have just enough food. And guess what? They can't complain about the food. They brought the food themselves. All right? We just had our picnic. We had 75 people there, including a person who died 2 years ago, very active in our group. Her whole church family and her family come. And they know how to throw a picnic. Let me tell you something. They're Baptist, and boy, we have a great time. So what I'm saying is, be creative. Don't think, well, this is the way we do it. You know, how are we going to do it? We can't charge enough people to pay for it. We can't have it anymore. Let's do it free. Can't do that. No, people bring their own food. Huh? You know, that's what I'm talking about. Break the mold. Get out of the box. Try something. Go find some young people at Allie and say, Allie, here's our problem. How would you do it differently? I'll bet you she'd come up with that idea if I hadn't come up with it, if she was in the picnic area. Anyway, just a thought for you, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Anybody else had board experience want to share? Yes, Mary?
Well, we've just gotten the board together after many years of not really having one. So it's the president, vice president, treasurer, secretary. And then we sort of opened it to anybody who's interested in coming. In our bylaws, it said you can have up to 21 members. So we've only had like one meeting before our regular meeting. But what we decided that keeps the members more interested is the board doesn't make the decisions on how much money we spend or who we send it to. The members do. So any donations, like to your group for the wonderful book, or if we are able to donate a scholarship again, the members make the decision, and that makes them feel more interested.
Exactly.
They really belong.
And if they're voting for a scholarship, you know what? Quite often they'll give you a check for a piece of it. And so you don't have to fight to go raise the money. They're engaged. At our local church, we have 3 plots that back in the 1930s and 40s, a lot of unnamed children were buried there. There's 91 children buried there with unmarked graves because of things that happened in that time period, okay? And recently our men's group, which happened to be the president, said, geez, isn't that a shame? We should mark that. How are we going to do that? We're going to put a memorial up, a stone in the grave, in the cemetery rather. Well, that costs a lot of money. I said, don't worry about it. We'll get that. And so we have this beautiful monument that's being done for these 91 children who have been unnamed for almost a century now. And we're going to allow anybody in the church, we don't have a big church, to take an envelope with a number on it. That's their child they want to adopt. Anything they want to put in the envelope is going toward it. The excess money over the $2,000 we need is going for the future of the current children in the church. All I'm saying is, you come up with these ideas, there's creative ways to get around those roadblocks that other people in your chapter are going to tell you, you can't do. That won't work. We've never done that. Duh. Let's try it. Hey, our candidates event I told you before, isn't that great? If we don't get enough people, we're just going to postpone it another month until we get more people. We've gone to local OPO. They have a family house. There's a social worker in the family house that communicates with all the social workers and all the programs. We couldn't find the names of all the social workers. We have 43 transplant programs in the Philadelphia area. Went to her and said, hey, could you reach out and share this? Sure. They're taking care of it. We're going to take 50 copies of those books and send it out to all those social workers as part of the invitation to get their patients to come to our thing. Team up with somebody. We don't have the names. We never could figure them out. She's got it all. And guess what? She gets the benefit of giving them something that she doesn't have and helping them, so she gets credit for it. Good for her. What are the challenges anybody want to talk about? Yes, go ahead.
You're on the subject of adoption. I'm going to go back to the transplant days. I was born with a gentleman there from Georgia, and matter of fact, that's where my heart came from Georgia. And he says, have you ever met your donor family? I says, no, I've written to them, never heard a word. He says, there's a lot of donor families here at the games. Adopt. If you get to talk to somebody there who will sit down and accept you, because they have a heartache too. They haven't, they've lost somebody. Now they can relate, even though you're not
right.
They're the recipient of their loved one's heart or whatever, and.
You'll be a substitute till they find their own if they ever do. Right.
But that was so late on, and we were sort of diverse, so I never was able to do that. But if I go back, and I'm sure I could on the game site and just ask for Transplant Cancer American, say who, what kind of donors or what any of these donor families respond and throw that out there, because this guy just threw that out to me when I was born.
Okay.
That was a tremendous idea, because, there's an awful, you're not the norm if you meet your donor family.
Right. They get the stories, and it sounds like everybody does, but they don't. There's probably about 10% that do. But boy, it seems like, oh, I never met my donor family. How am I left out? You're the 90%. You're the normal ones. So anyway, it's truly a gift if you're able to do it. Any other last-minute thoughts on this topic? Go ahead.
Topic, not this one.
Walt,
The
what?
problem I have is, how do we get the word out that we exist?
All right, I'm going to tell you, give me a quick answer. Make sure you take one of our brochures.
Okay.
All right? National purchase the rights to a template, which we'll be glad to send you. All you do is you take Word, for example, or if you have Publisher, by all means, and you take that template, fill in your story, your local contact information, your local pictures, and take it to a printer. And you have, we've got 2,000 of those brochures that we hand out to patients. That's step one. Go ahead.
Now, my question is, that's great when we have gatherings and we do that, we've got our own, we probably even stole that template. I wouldn't be
Okay.
surprised. But just breaking into the news media, maybe it's because we're remote from Cleveland, but there are a number of papers in the area, there's a number of local papers, and we have in Ohio what's called the Calendar of Ohio. And I've had our meeting notice in for 6 months, and we made the paper twice. And it's just happenstance.
Mm-hmm.
There's no place that I've been able to find to break into being able to get into a regular thing so that we get stuff out there. It's on the Calendar of Ohio, but typically if you look at Tuesday, the 18th of pick a month, there's 63 items in there.
Mm-hmm.
And they put it in alphabetically. They do a real good job of putting it in alphabetically, but people aren't gonna get down to trio.
But it's a very restricted audience you're looking for. Somebody's going to spot it. Watch what happens. Yes.
That was my issue too, because we're here by the skin of our teeth. We got a hold of Jim like right, at the end of the time that you could register, and we got here, and I thought back to how did we get here? And it turns out he had his transplant at Columbia, and we went on there, every so often we go on their thing, because they do these seminars for transplant patients, for the lung transplant people. And John's actually a speaker at one of them, and every so often, and we wanted to see what was coming up, see if they needed us again, and all their links, like they have a page of links.
Right.
That's where we saw Trio, and I'm like, oh, well, this looks interesting. So that's how we got here, and it led me to, well, that was on the internet, and when I'm on Facebook, which is like every day, multiple times a day.
And are you a friend of the
much.
Transplant Recipients Facebook?
There's a Donate Life thing all the time. There's a
Mhm.
story or something from different states and
Right.
national. And I thought, well, I don't see Trio very often.
You got to talk to the Facebook person for Trio, right here,
So
Susan,
Facebook, man.
and connect, and then share your link. We share your link, you share your link.
And the more you comment
Yeah.
on it, the more people see it.
Exactly.
So I'll comment on it.
She's tracking all over the world comments out there.
Yeah.
Claude?
She'll tell you what we had for dinner last night.
Claude?
Yeah, pictures.
One thing I have heard several times here today that I do not like.
Okay, what's that?
I am not a transplant patient.
No, you're a recipient.
I am a recipient. I think that way. I thought that way from day
Mhm.
one. That's why I've had very few problems.
And I have to admit, I'm very careless with those terms, and I always appreciate being corrected, for example. So we're trying to change vocabulary, right? You don't harvest organs, you recover the gifts. Somebody isn't on life support after they've been declared brain dead, and we are transplant recipients, not transplant patients. You're right. Okay? Although sometimes we are patients even after transplant. All right. Anybody else? If not, we're going to wrap up. A couple reminders. One, there was restricted parking today, and so the shuttle was used to get you back and forth. There will be ample parking tomorrow because there are not many people working here. So if you have your car with you, by all means, the shuttle is still available to you. Couple quick things. Tonight, 6:30 to 7, social time. Come on out wherever we are over there. I don't know where we are. We'll find out together. We have a very nice event coming up. We are not assigning seats. We'll have a couple of tables for our awardees and some people want to sit with them, but feel free to take any seat you want. By all means, bring your badges that you have, okay? On the back of your badge, there's a word chicken, beef, or vegetarian. That's the meal you're going to get. And there's probably some flexibility because they always have some extras, so don't worry about that. But when you come to the table, I know you're all dressed up in your fancy gowns, so put it in your pocketbook, or guys, put it in your other pocket. So when you sit down, put that in front of you so the waiters know what to bring you, okay? Simple but easy. Tomorrow we'll talk about some more details in terms of some administrative stuff. 8 o'clock, we'll have food here. 8:30, we'll start on time. We will be through by 5. There's a couple people have early flights that need to get out. That's not a problem. Before you leave, you need to check out with Sylvia. One, did everybody get a bag? For anybody that missed the new Trio anniversary bag? Paul, we got one for you up there. Steve, not a problem. Make sure you take it out of the box before you leave today so you have your bag. There will be another gift for you when you check out. Sylvia has the Trio pins that we gave out to members a year or two ago. We brought enough to supply, so even if you have one with you, if you want an extra one for that other suit, so you wear it wherever, all you have to do is ask her. She'll be glad to give you one as part of the checkout process, along with another gift that's put in your bag, okay? So if you're leaving early, make sure you see Sylvia. I'll remind you that tomorrow, just so you know.
Can you introduce Sylvia in case there's some people
Sylvia,
who somehow
stand up so everybody knows who you are.
Oh, hi.
She's the one when you call or
You
write
understand
in.
your texts aren't signed.
When you write to info@TrioWeb, she's the one answering it. When you call the info at the Trio hotline, that's who answers it. And she answers it any time of day or night, all 7 days a week. We do not pay her for that. She just does it because of the commitment to our cause. So with that, JT, our past president, who, by the way, would love to be here. He's dealing with some medical issues, so he called first thing this morning to say, hey, I know I'm missing, but I'm going for an x-ray now, goodbye. So he's been in the hospital, had more tests done. He's here in spirit. He gives a greeting to all of you. He always closes all meetings with, he actually goes around and has everybody answer this, so I'm not going to do that because there are too many numbers. He always says, does anybody have any comments for the good of Trio? And so with that open invitation, I'll give you an opportunity. And like I said, we have the camera on. It's not being blocked by James's head here. Would anybody like to say anything for the good of Trio, whatever that is?
Yes, I will.
Steve?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Jim, you've run a beautiful meeting today.
Thank you. If you're not one of those who got rushed by it, damn that Gleason anyway. Yes.
Okay, Jim and Sylvia, thank you. Whenever I ask a question, it goes out on the internet, it comes back.
Good.
It goes out, it comes back. It's great. Thank you.
We're glad to be able to serve you. That's our role. That's the best I can say. Anybody else that would like to say anything else for the good of Trio? Yes.
I've been a member of Trio since 1992, and I just want to say it's been a very big part of my life and something that I'm very proud to be a member of there, and it's been very helpful.
Thank you.
And I appreciate everybody that's done whatever they've done for the Trio organizations and for all the national Trio.
Okay. Mary?
I get hundreds of emails, but you're the only person that almost always answers within 5 minutes after I send you a question. You and Sylvia helped our Trio.
You want to know the secret? My memory is such that if I don't answer you right away, you may not get an answer. So my value system is be responsive. And since I work out of my home office, I'm there at the computer no matter what I'm in. If a mail comes in, I'm either deleting it or responding to it. And that usually is up to about 11 o'clock at night for our California folks. And so I appreciate your comment. I'll try and keep doing it. If you don't hear from me in a reasonable time from the time you send me something, don't hesitate to send again and say, Jim, did you miss that one? every once in a while we miss something, and we're not meant to. So usually I'll say back, Mary, thank you for that comment, thank you for your newsletter, whatever, and that's the intention. So thank you very much. We'll try and keep that up. Anybody else? Yes.
When our daughter had a transplant, she was at Emory in Georgia, and she still lived there. And so we stayed with her for 2 months, and then we went back to Ohio. And that Sunday, I opened the paper, and it just happened, there was a message about Trio and where they met. And we started going there, and it was such a blessing for us, because we had to, I felt like I was abandoning her with 2 young children and a nice husband, but she was still not the way she is now.
Mm-hmm.
And having Trio meant a lot to us, because I could look stuff up. Or somebody would say, oh yeah, I had a liver transplant 5 years ago and I'm fine. It was just a support, an invisible support that I had no idea existed.
Well, we're in an age where everybody thinks, and they're right, you can put anything into a Google search and you'll find everything. So a lot of people feel they don't need organizations anymore because there is so much out there. And so with that,
I have something.
oh, yes. Steve? That's not the book. Sylvia? That's not the book. Give it to him, but we'll have to replace with the right book. Come on. Our new board members always get a book. Steve, you were voted on the board this morning. This is the board handbook for new members of the board. And I'd like to offer a round of congratulations to our new board member, past president of San Francisco, and newly elected to the board. So he'll be there to serve you. Call him if you have any questions.
I have a word.
Yes.
Transplantation is love.
Amen to that.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else? With that, it is 5:27. We're scheduled to be over by 5:30. That's something else I value important, okay? Your time. Thank you. We'll see you over there, dressed any way you want. We hope respectful for our guests, okay?